Hi, this is Alex, and if you love music, well, you've come to the right place because we're all about albums. Before we get to today's topic, I want to talk about an overlooked album. This video's overlooked album is entitled Love Letter for Fire, and that came out in 2016 on the Sub Pop label, and this is by Sam Beam and Jessica Hoop. Now, who is Sam Beam? As I've mentioned before, for those of you who don't know, Sam is Iron and Wine. Following Sam's career, many times his collaboration with other artists turn out to be some of his best work, and this album is no exception to that. Jessica is a much overlooked singer-songwriter, and if you listen to the 13 tracks on this album, it is pretty easy to pick out which song was written by which artist. However, what you will find is that each song has more substance to it and more variation to the music due to the fact that two artists collaborated and made the song greater than it would have been otherwise if only one had written the song. The duets on this album are absolutely beautiful. You have Sam's soft, whispery vocals highlighted by the beautiful overlying singing surrounding this nice whispery voice of Sam. And what you end up with is some great counterpoint singing. And I think if you like duet singings, this is a great album to check out. So I think one of the strengths of this album is that each person on their own is a great singer-songwriter, but taken together, this album goes beyond what each artist could have done by themselves. I hope you find time to give this album a listen. If you love mellow albums with beautiful harmony singings, you really owe yourself to check this album out. You won't regret it. So the numbers are in for the music revenue for 2021, and they are by the RIAA, that's the Record Industry Association of America. So yes, these statistics are for sales of music in the US. What we find is that in 2021, both vinyl and CD sales have increased significantly. And this is the first year in a very long time that both vinyl and CD sales were up at the same time. So let's look at the numbers more closely. So in 2021, the total music revenue in the US was $15 billion. That's with a B, billion. Now, that sets a record. Back in 1999, the previous record was $14.6 billion. However, adjusted for inflation, the total revenue this past year still is about 37% below the peak in 1999. However, if we compare the numbers to 2020, there has been a 23% increase. It's a very large number. And that is from 2020, we had 12.1 billion and we jumped now to 15 billion. And if you look across the board, all music formats have increased significantly with the exception of digital downloads. Digital downloads have decreased by approximately 12%. Now, just like in 2020, the largest segment of the music revenue comes from streaming, and that is all different formats of streaming, and this is still making up 83% of all the revenue, and that number has not changed in comparison to 2020. So we see that streaming brought in $12.3 billion of the $15 billion, and there has been an increase from prior year of 24%. The greatest share of this revenue comes from paid subscriptions. Paid subscriptions makes up $9.5 billion of all the dollars. That is, it makes up 2/3 of all the revenues that's coming in the music industry. However, this even is larger, making up 76% of the revenue coming in from the streaming services. Just to see what has occurred, paid subscriptions has gone from 75.5 million subscribers to 84 million subscribers in 1 year. That's an increase of 11%. If you look at 2019 to 2021, the revenue from paid subscriptions has increased approximately 40%. So now let's move on to the numbers for physical media, which is what most of you out there are interested in. So what happened? Well, it's the first time since 1996 that both vinyl sales and CD sales were up in the same year. Additionally, what we find is that this is the 15th consecutive year that the revenue from vinyl is increased. In 2021, the revenue from vinyl was increased a whopping 61% to $1 billion. The last time vinyl reached $1 billion in sales was back in 1986. That is 36 years ago, quite a long time. Now for you CD lovers out there, CD sales went up 21% in the last year. However, vinyl makes up 63% of all physical media sales. Vinyl by itself makes up 7% of all music revenue, and physical media combined CDs and other formats come up to 11% of all revenue. However, this number is very similar to the prior years. So overall, although there has been growth in both CD sales and vinyl sales especially, as far as a percentage, it has remained approximately the same. After looking at these numbers, why am I concerned? After all, for those of us who love vinyl and CD and want to be owners of music and not borrowers of music by paid subscriptions, we've done great in the past year. So here are my concerns. First off, we just touched upon this. Although there has been great growth in physical media, it still makes up approximately 1/10 of all the music revenue, and that has not changed over the last year. In fact, the paid subscriptions as well as all streaming is still at 83%, making up a large segment of the music revenue. Another concern of mine is, although there has been growth in sales of both vinyl and CD, you have to remember, especially with vinyl, there has been an increase in the cost of vinyl, especially if you look at reissues as well as box sets. So although there has been definitely an increase in the number of sales, part of it has to do with the increase in the cost of buying vinyl. And what about the CDs? Well, CD sales have increased, and this may be related to the change of COVID. Last year, bands started getting out on the road again, and so CD sales have been up because you can buy CDs at shows, and those artists who you enjoyed at the concert, many people would then buy the physical media available to them. I'm not sure about you, but I'm sure thinking about how I spend my music dollars. As you know, the cost of vinyl, as we have said and we have seen, has gone up considerably. So now I have to think about where I spend my money. And I'm finding that I'm buying fewer albums, not more albums. It's just that I have to figure out where to spend my music dollars. I don't think this trend is going to change anytime soon due to worker shortages and supply shortages, as well as the significant increase in inflation here in the United States. This will all have an effect on our music revenue. We are finding that our incomes are not keeping pace with the increased prices. Because of that, our disposable income has diminished. So as I see it, music revenue in 2022 will not increase as much as it did in the prior years, again, due to price increases as well as inflation. Something you may not have considered has to do with the population. The baby boomers make up the largest chunk of the population, and we are all aging. Some of us are starting to die off, and what that means is there are less baby boomers around for the purchase of vinyl and even CDs. Why is that? Well, they grew up in the era of vinyl and later CDs, and they are the largest segment of the population buying physical media. And although there are new people coming into the hobby of physical media and music in general, there are not as many coming in as there are going to be baby boomers dying off. This is a concern of mine for the longevity of physical media. As we have seen with CDs in the past, many collectors of CDs have given up their collection. These CDs were available then for purchase at a much reduced price, and you can get that at many of the thrift stores as well as pawn shops and in the used sections of record stores. And many vinyl collectors, as we have said, many of which are baby boomers, as they age, they may give up their collections and sell them at a very cheap rate. So much like CDs, you'll have a lot of vinyl at a much reduced rate available. This will likely impact the sale of new vinyl. This next point was brought up to me by one of the viewers of this channel. And that is that over the years, CD players, especially those that are cheaper priced or moderately priced, are much less available. And as the CD players age, what will happen? They will fail. And there's not enough places, especially at a reasonable rate, to replace them or even get them repaired. Now, there are CD players available in the market. Most of them are from high-end dealers. And because of that, fewer people are going to opt to buy one of these high-priced CD players. And those CD players can run in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So I think some people may get frustrated in the years to come and give up their CD collections and future collecting of CDs. So I think that possibly because of the lack of available moderately or lower price CD players, we may see fewer individuals collecting CDs. So why don't we have to worry about that as much for vinyl? Well, turntable companies have been coming out of the woodwork. Many companies that are still around who gave up their vinyl turntables in the 80s and 90s are now back. And also, many companies have multiple tier levels for their turntables. So what will happen is you may have an introductory price, and then you may have a moderately priced, and then some expensive, and then uber expensive models. So there are turntables out there by many companies as well as at many price levels. With vinyl sales soaring, it is becoming harder and harder to fill the artist's order for their vinyl. They have to wait up to 1 year for their vinyl. As I said, people who want to put out a Christmas album typically in the spring already have to put their order in so it will come out on time. Therefore, many people in the industry are questioning the long-term viability of vinyl. Additionally, major artists take over the pressing plants and smaller artists gets pushed to the side. So their projects take longer and longer to come out. And what happens is these smaller artists will turn to the streaming services to get their music out there. As an after effect, however, many artists, especially smaller artists, will turn to CDs as they are easier to manufacture without much of a delay. So will the increasing sales of vinyl and the demand for vinyl causing delays be vinyl's downfall? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. So are there any solutions to this long-term problem? Now, you may say, well, look at all the video channels out there. Not only mine, there are multiple physical media sites, especially vinyl sites promoting vinyl. And that's great. But we're really preaching to the choir. People watching these channels are already into physical media, whether they're CDs or vinyls or other types of physical media. So what has to happen is we got to get the message out there to others. So what can we do? Well, maybe we should take time with family, friends, and get our children, grandchildren, and others involved. Let them listen to your stereo system. Let them see what they're missing. Not only the joys of owning something and something so beautiful and a great hobby, but also the quality of the sound that you're going to get from both CD and vinyl as compared to streaming. And not only that, when I go out, I'm seeing more and more restaurants and bars having physical media playing, especially we're seeing turntables out many places. And if we can get more and more bars and restaurants out there playing music via physical media, I think we may get a larger exposure to the population and maybe get some converts. And this may help the longevity of this great hobby of ours. And finally, due to the problem and delay in pressing, because there is only so many pressing plants around, obviously, especially with vinyl sales soaring, why wouldn't other people get involved and open their own pressing plants and make some cash? And that will do many things. It'll keep the artists happy so that they don't abandon ship on vinyl, as well as more and more vinyl available on a more timely basis, which would make those of us who love physical media continue our hobby. So what I am hoping for our hobby is not to let it become a niche market, but rather have it keep growing and have an ever enlarging population enjoying physical media. And who could argue with that? Now for last video's unknown album. The first unknown album is by Wilco, one of their great albums, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Now, there's an interesting story behind this fourth studio album by the band, and that is that they were previously on the Reprise label. And Reprise did not want to release the album as it was. They did not think it had the formula as their first three albums had. So what happened was the band didn't want to delay the release. Rather, the band at their official website allowed people to come in and stream the album and listen without costing them anything. And then what happened, the band kept shopping around, and finally None Such Records did release the album in 2002. Their album sold quite heavily and did really, really well. So their strategy of streaming the album early on to get people excited did pay off. This has become Wilco's best-selling album. Now, interesting, the None Such label is under the Warner label, and so is, you guessed it, Reprise Records as well. So where does this famous album cover image come from? Well, it is from the Marina City Complex in the great city of Chicago, where Wilco is based. These buildings are rather unique and stand out in the Chicago skyline while you are walking along the downtown corridor along the Chicago River. The next unknown album came out in 2015, entitled I Love You, Honey Bear, and it is by Father John Misty. Father John Misty is the persona of the artist Josh Tillman, and you may say, I've heard that name before. Well, you should have. Josh Tillman was the former drummer of the great band the Fleet Foxes. This album is of indie rock music, and this album is rather melodic and deals a lot with the heavy topic of love, and not only the good side of it, but the bad side of it as well. So why was the topic of love on the mind of Josh Tillman? Well, most likely it's because he was recently married. So to discover Josh Tillman's view on love, not only the good part, but the bad part as well. You should check out this album. Many people feel this may be his best album. And now for this video's unknown album, the first unknown album. Great, hope you got that one. The second unknown album. Great, hope you got that one as well. If you think you know the answers, let me know in the comment sections below and I'll let you know how you did. As always, this is Alex with All About Albums. Thanks for listening, have a great day, and remember, keep them spinning.